There's something that I say over and over again. This is not a system belonging to Tayyip Erdogan.
It's really never a good sign when a person, one, reversed himself in the third person.
I am a mortal being. I can die at any time.
And then two, more importantly, has to repeatedly deny that they're a dictator.
If you say ballot box produces a dictator, that would be unfair to the ballot box process.
On April 16th, Turkey narrowly voted yes on a referendum that will dramatically reorganize the government. It allows changes that give sweeping powers to the president, Tayyip Erdogan. He could have complete control of Turkey's budget and military, will be able to appoint judges to the courts without a vote, can dissolve parliament whenever he chooses, and can stay in power until 2029. This has prompted concerns that he's becoming too authoritarian. And these concerns aren't that outlandish, mostly because Turkey was built by an authoritarian.
If you look at the arc of modern Turkish history, it begins with Mustafa Kemal Ataturk.
First president of the First Turkish Republic, Mustafa Kemal, during the 1920s, is now granted dictatorial powers and is himself christened Ataturk, meaning father of the Turks.
Ataturk was a military general who created the Republic of Turkey out of the collapsed Ottoman Empire in 1923. During his 15 years in office, he enjoyed similar powers now held by Erdogan. He used them to build Turkey into a modern and secular state.
Turkey's new government separates church and state.
So he banned head coverings.
To Kemal, this headgear, the fez, symbolizes Turkey's Oriental fatalism and ignorance. He will abolish it.
He put mosques under state control.
Islamic traditions are shattered.
He made it basically illegal to discriminate against women.
He takes pleasure in the company of emancipated women.
He made women's education compulsory. He made literacy rates rise. He made schools open to everyone.
To make a modern nation, all Turkey must be sent to school.
Ataturk also industrialized his country. Under his watch, the industrial sector saw a sharp increase, and his liberal foreign policies built a close relationship with the West, which paved the way for Turkey to join the NATO alliance in 1952.
We know that Ataturk succeeded because for decades it was a modern, secular Western country like he wanted it to be.
Ataturk is dictator so that Turkey may never again have a dictator.
Now you have President Erdogan. President Erdogan is going in literally the opposite direction. He wants to make the country much more openly religious. He wants to get rid of a lot of what Ataturk had done.
But how does a religious, conservative leader acquire so much power in a secular country? To understand this, you have to know what happened to Turkey after Ataturk's death. For 5 decades, the country was constantly in a state of upheaval. Ataturk had given the military the responsibility of keeping Turkey secular, and they did so by staging coups in 1960, 71, 80, and again in 1997. While the interventions were meant to keep Turkey democratic, the instability left the country in poor shape.
In the 90s and even to the early 2000s, Turkey had completely stale economy. The GDP growth had slowed, unemployment was very high. It was seen as a very corrupt country, the government didn't function.
Enter Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He was the mayor of Istanbul from 1994 to 97. 2 years later, he was arrested for a public reading of a politically charged Islamic poem by a Turkish nationalist. Turkey was still a majority Muslim country, and his arrest made him popular with many who felt oppressed by years of the secular military rule. After a short jail sentence, he formed a moderately conservative political party, the AKP, which went on to win a landslide victory in the 2002 elections, and he became Prime Minister of Turkey. Erdogan went on to pull the country out of poverty by giving more opportunities to Turkish entrepreneurs and expanding access to foreign markets. This led to a sharp rise in the GDP, and inflation plummeted. Turkey's success even prompted efforts to join the EU. This all made Erdogan wildly popular.
It was like he came onto a boat that was listing and taking on water, and he managed to get the water out of the boat and make the boat sail straight again. So for many years you could see why a man like this would be as powerful as he became. Then he went too far.
Over the next 10 years, Turkey continued to grow economically, but Erdogan started pushing more Islamist and authoritarian policies. He was quoted saying that he did not believe men and women were equal, and that women were meant to be mothers. His government also began arresting protesters and journalists under the guise of anti-terrorism laws. This stirred unrest in Turkey's more liberal urban areas. In 2013, there was a small, peaceful demonstration in Istanbul's Gezi Park to protest Erdogan's plans to reconstruct military barracks that would include a shopping center and a mosque. Seeing the demonstration as opposition, Erdogan sent in riot police to remove the protesters, which quickly attracted more protesters.
It got bigger and bigger because it was a proxy. It morphed from being a protest over a park to being a protest against Erdogan, against how religious he was becoming, and it got violent. Previously, he had not been a brutal ruler. After this, he became a brutal one.
Erdogan began removing Ataturk's secular laws more aggressively. He ended the ban on wearing headscarves, tightened restrictions on alcohol sales, and freed mosques from government control. Then in 2014, Erdogan was elected president, which in Turkey is a ceremonial role with little real power. But that didn't put an end to the arrests made across the country, which indicated that Erdogan was still in charge.
And there were two groups of people who were terrified by this. One, the kind of secular Turks who looked back to Ataturk and said, "The hell's happening to our country?" The other was the military. And they were the ones, again, who believed that their core mission in life was to keep Turkey secular and that he was a threat.
So in July 2016, they staged a coup, and it almost worked. There was just one problem. The military couldn't get the public support this time. Erdogan had found a new way to reach his supporters.
I want to encourage my people to the streets and invite them to the airports. And together, as people gather, show them, by letting them come with their tanks, to see what they are going to do it right there to the people.
Erdogan had this amazing moment where he used FaceTime on his iPhone to kind of rally the country and say, defend the country, defend us against the military. Come Turks, come to me, come help rally around me. And it worked. You had secular Turks for the first time in years defend Erdogan. You had religious Turks literally stream from mosques into the streets to fight the military. The military overstepped. You had Turkish F-16s fire rockets and missiles at parliament. Turkish tanks fired at people in the streets. That was very effective for him.
Erdogan emerged from the fighting more popular than ever and ramped up his purge of the opposition. More than 100,000 journalists, academics, military officers, and politicians have been arrested since the coup attempt. Tens of thousands remain in detention. This brings us to the recent referendum, which follows Erdogan's post-coup popularity. He set it in motion to acquire more power and to make it permanent, but the vote was much closer than it was anticipated, suggesting that much of the country wants to hold on to the secular Turkey created by Ataturk, and they're willing to fight for it.
But I do think you're going to have the inevitable tension of a president who believes he's entitled to more power, taking more and more of it, and what remains a somewhat secular country that isn't comfortable with giving him that power. Do those tensions play out politically and in court, or do those play out in the streets? If it's actual fighting and violence, then what we know of as a democratic Turkey is over.